If it's tonic, it's burning here, roughly a third, and it's roughly that distance of stimulation. From when it starts to burn, it's in this zone. In the breakdown of the body, down by the bone, it's the blood, then the yin, then the qi, then the wei, right? This is more of a yang and qi level. A yang and qi level. Make sense? Okay. Yang and qi circulation goes along with the meridian. Simple enough. When it's dispersive, you're going to get to high warmth or hot. If it's hot, it's burning down more. Maybe past halfway, maybe to 2/3. In which case, you're getting stimulation that goes all the way down to here. In which case, you're lower, so therefore you're more with the blood and the yin levels, and the circulatory system is being kicked in. As the circulatory system, the true blood vessel and blood flow is kicked in, you're going to get a larger, because you have a larger quantity, this is giving a smaller quantity of moving stimulation. This is giving a larger quantity of moving stimulation. Which one is more dispersive? It makes more motion. It spreads more. Another way to think about this dispersive one, the tonic is less spread. This is more spread. Does that make sense? Okay. And if you scar it, you let it burn down all the way. And if you let it burn down all the way, what happens? Yes, the person goes, ouch. If you scar it, it's going to burn down all the way. You get the biggest depth of penetration, which is as low as possible. And when you scar it, what happens to the skin? It's burned, right? It's damaged. So the skin is damaged. When you damage your skin and you scar it, at the point where it's contacted and scarred, you now have induced a permanent alteration in the landscape of the meridian. You have a scar, a permanent alteration in the landscape of the meridian, induced by a high level of vibratory nature. Boom. It is intrinsically dispersive, and it is a permanent alteration to that. It's a rock now in the flow. What happens in a river when you put a rock in a flow? It goes around, and you get you get a current, and you therefore get rapids. Right? That's how you make rapids, a bunch of rocks in the flow. So now you have the person who's chronically phlegmy. Right? Maybe the person's always phlegmy, you've had a phlegmy patient before. So you go to stomach 40 and you do scarring Moxa on stomach 40. And you scar it. Why? What have you done? It's dispersive because you brought it all the way down, and then BAM! It's really dispersive and rock in the flow. So their stomach 40 metabolism must always go faster. Because there's a rock in the flow. We made rapids in that channel. Does that make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. Right? So now you say, well, now you know why you're going to do scarring Moxa. Why would you do it? You're going to induce a permanent change. Because what you've done has not got permanent change.
Permanent dispersive change.
Scarring Moxa in general is dispersive, yes.
Even when
very
you do
hard to make
thread,
it tonic.
Even when you do like the rice grain scarring or like a thread system.
For the most part, it's considered, they say, oh, it's invigorating. That's being dispersive. You know, that's why you do it on stomach 36. You're doing this. You don't really do it on something that's.
So stomach 36, when you do it, you're invigorating it to tonify. So.
The byproduct of that is invigoration of the channel, so it circulates more. So therefore, it will have an overall tonic effect, but it's locally dispersive or spreading of the effect of that fluid. Yes. I answer the question? Okay. Make sense? I had a patient. She was a young girl in high school. She had a horrible emotional shock, and from the one time I saw her to the next week, she developed a black mole on bladder 15 on her back. Black as midnight. Just this big lump. And I said, and she was completely dysphoric. It was like apathetic and like didn't care, hated life and everything like that. So I said, I explained to her, I got to scar it. You know, I explained to her mother. And she's like, dude, it's terrible. So I scarred the black mold, burned it down, and it didn't do anything. Nothing, nothing. 4 scar moxas, cones on top of this monster. Down, 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 down. And then finally I said, yeah, I guess. And it denatured the top of it. The mold fell off. And it left a little scar underneath it. It was really weird. It left a little scar underneath it because the mold came off as I was cleaning up the moxa. It just had singed it completely. It came off. You know, I cleaned it with some alcohol. It wasn't that bad. Put a Band-Aid on it. Off she went. The mother called me the next day. And she goes, I don't know what you did, but she's night and day. She's back to normal. She's completely different. Completely altered the way she was behaving. So it was the right technique. That was the most intense scarring thing to do.
So what was your theory there?
She did not have this mold. Then this black spot came up, which I took as blood stagnation. Extreme blood stagnation. So I just attacked it and dispersed the bejeebers in it. Just slammed it with scarlets. Because it came up and it looked weird. It looked like a thumbtack in the back. Like the way it popped up and it was raised and it was hard and it was just out of nowhere. Like it was almost a blood blister, but it wasn't full of anything. It was a mole. So, and it went from not being there to being there in the span of 7 days. And of course, I refer to counseling.
When you say dispersive, using, Moxa, dispersive locally, but systemically,
It can be invigorating systemically.
because you're putting chi into the system, right?
Yes.
Even though you're spreading it from that spot,
Yes.
it's still in the system. Right?
Yes. So it can be, that's what Crystal said about before about 736. That can be generally invigorating, though locally dispersive to that point. So far so good. Yes, we're good. Transfer mediums. Transfer mediums. In transfer mediums, this is cone moxa on top of the transfer medium. So you can have futsa, aconite cake. Okay? You can use blue roan, deer antler. You can use tunpi, not very, very popular, but can be done. You can use fuling. You can use potato, which I've seen done, which is interesting. Potato. Rice. Salt.
Ginger? Ginger? Ginger.
Ginger, yes. Sorry. And ginger. So you can use a transfer medium. And you can fiddle around with other transfer mediums and say, what happened if I did this? What happened if I did this? Okay? Because in some sense, you could try any of the herbs that you're familiar with, and you could do them and see if it does have the effect that you want it to have. These effectively are mutes, as I mentioned before. They mute the effect of the moxa. Right? The best illustrative example of this is the salt. The moxa is put there, the salt is put on the moxa, the salt is on top of gauze, the gauze on top of your navel. The navel is the most common place to do salt. And for the most part, that's the only technique that's done on the navel. Right? And that's why you asked before about, could we do the raw moxa on the navel? Although you could, this is like the preferred technique on there. What does the salt do, besides make you have a hard time explaining it to patients? When the stimulation is coming through, right, the vibration, have you ever seen it, if you took like a sandbox and tapped the side, sand would scatter the pattern. The salt scatters the stimulation. So as the moxa burns down, you're getting a scatter pattern, and the scatter pattern would be large, but you're getting a scatter pattern throughout the body due to the salt's crystalline structure, scattering the influence.